Fabio Wardley is not just a puncher, he is a paradox of power, a fighter built by knockouts, adversity, science, mentorship. The scary part is not simply that he hits hard, it is that he is learning exactly when and how to land. So let's give a chronology. Let's give a chronology of Fabio Wardley. And what we're going to do, we're not going to jump into the amateur context. We're going to go straight into the professional context. So in 2017, Fabio Wardley gets a points win. So it's a win, but there's no knockout. So perhaps this is a modest introduction. But then we go from 2017 to 2019, and this is where he becomes a knockout force. As Fabio Wardley is knocking people out. This gives Fabio Wardley like a small popularity boost within the British galaxy or the British context. Fabio Wardley is punching hard. He's punching really hard, and he's putting people on the canvas. Now, on 2020, the 1st of August 2020, at the Brentwood Centre, Fabio scores a third-round knockout and he wins the English heavyweight title. Question: was this the moment Wardley showed he could carry real knockout power? Now let's move on. So now we're going to move on to the Ryder season, and in November 2023, there's a significant move. Because this is the point where he fights Nathan Gorman. Now, it's important to establish who Nathan Gorman is. I believe Nathan Gorman is related to Tyson Fury, but he had a good record with only one loss to Daniel Dubois at the time. And yes, that was a devastating loss, but he had some decent pedigree. And I would say that Nathan Gorman presented a challenge. A decent left hook counter, good footwork, and a better boxing IQ. So we had a decent left hook counter, good footwork, and better boxing IQ. The question here is, how would Fabio deal with this puzzle? Well, it only lasted 3 rounds, but they were exciting. Those rounds were exciting. There was a bloody nose, and Fabio got tested. But after, I believe it was multiple knockdowns, the towel was thrown in. And I think you could say that this had a significant boost in the UK. And again, Wardley is showing power. He's showing power, and he's showing heart. And I guess the question here is, did this victory prove Wardley could break down a technically skilled heavyweight? Did this victory illustrate that? So now we're moving to the 28th of October, 2023. I hope that date is correct. Anyway, here we're in the Kingdom Arena at the Ryder, Saudi Arabia. So that's the venue. And Fabio fights David Adley. And again, the question is, who is David Adley? Well, Adley is good at marketing. He's quite good at marketing. And there was a conflict between these two. There was a conflict which brought additional attention. Now, Adley at this point, I believe, had won the English title and was a rising contender. He was unbeaten at this time with ambition. And if he was to break that down to paint a picture, you would say good technical ability and a strong left hook counter. So another boxer with a strong left hook counter, a better left hook counter. Now, Fabio in this fight took a dominant position. He nullified that left hook counter and he forced, I believe it was a 7th round stoppage. This again gave Fabio a solid popularity boost due to the platform. Again, this fight showed, this fight showed composure. It showed boxing IQ, and again, it showed significant power because the power was making an impact on better opposition. And through these 2 fights, the Nathan Gorman and the David Adley, you would argue that Wardley was gaining significant traction. Wardley was gaining significant traction in the British heavyweight universe, or the British heavyweight ecosystem. I guess the question you could ask here was this the moment? Was this the moment that Wardley showed tactical maturity alongside power? Or this was the moment he showed tactical maturity alongside power? So this was a good victory. So now we're going to the 31st of March, 2024. The 31st of March, 2024. And this was the first fight with Frasier Clarke at the O2 Arena of London. So what we can see here, from Nathan Gorman to David Adelaide to Frasier Clarke, the competition is getting better. The competition is getting better. And I can safely say that Frasier Clarke was a significant challenge. He had an amateur pedigree, a good amateur pedigree. And the main significance here was his improved or increased boxing IQ, or he had potentially, this was an opponent with the highest boxing IQ that Fabio Wardley had ever faced. So this was another significant chapter. So in the book of Fabio Wardley, this was a significant chapter in the British boxing ecosystem. Again, Frasier showed ring IQ, and in the fight he showed new looks, new traps, and if we're honest, Fabio struggled, understandably. It was a hard, brutal fight that led to a draw. And it was a great fight. This is a type of fight that can really raise your stock. And, you know, Fabio, I believe he scored a knockdown in round 5, showing that he had power even at this level. And like I said, it was brutal. It was entertaining. It was a fan favorite affair. It was brutal, it was entertaining, and a fan favorite affair. Again, the question could be asked, did Frasier expose some flaws? Did he expose the technical limitations of Fabio? Or was this just Fabio gaining more knowledge on his boxing apprenticeship? I guess it depends on perspective. This is not objective here, this is subjective. But the fans, of course, the fans wanted closure, and they demanded a rematch. Fabio, in fairness, was caught in a storm in the boxing match, figuratively speaking, but in that storm he managed to keep his unbeaten record. This had a significant popularity boost. And again, the question was, did this draw become the turning point? Did this draw become the turning point in Wardley's boxing development? So now we fast forward to the 12th of October, 2024, and in the Kingdom Arena in Ryder, the rematch was on. And this was marketed. People were interested, particularly the British public. And the British public, they're passionate about their boxers, or they're passionate about their boxing and their boxers. And these two boxers were now part of the British heavyweight boxing algorithm. So in Britain, I feel like we're always trying to find the next British heavyweight champion. And you're thinking, could one of these two match this anticipation? Is this the beginning of that journey? Now remember, we had Frank Bruno, who became a world champion eventually. Then we had Lennox Lewis. What an elite champion Lennox Lewis was, who had an extensive CV, who beat many great champions. Then you had Anthony Joshua, two-time champion, great champion. And then you had Tyson Fury, also a great champion, and you could argue an elite fighter. So we're looking for the next best thing within the British Empire, for want of a better word. So the questions in this fight for me was, who will improve in the rematch, and who can make the right adjustments? Which team will find the right adjustments and implement the right adjustments? And it turned out that the rematch was different. It was extremely different, because in round 1, Fabio scored a sensational knockout with that right hand. If I'm brutally honest, the knockout was scary, because you could literally see, and I don't want to be discourteous here because Frasier Clarke is a warrior, but you could literally see a dent in Frasier Clarke's head. And this made this knockout moment extremely viral. Fortunately, on a side note, Frasier Clarke had a quick recovery, which is great to know. And like I said, he is a warrior. But now you've got Fabio Wardley delivering knockouts that are going viral, and this is making him part of not only the British heavyweight algorithm, but part of the boxing algorithm, and the popularity boost here was significant. You could even argue it was relatively quite huge. Here's an important distinction. Fabio not only had power, he had significant power. Think about that. Fabio not only had power, he had significant power. And this viral moment was another piece of evidence. This was an important cultural moment within the British context. People may have missed the important nuance here. That yes, Fabio had power. We knew he had power, but also he knew how to land that power against boxers that had high ring IQ. And that was a significant distinction. So on the 7th of June, 2025, Fabio Wardley fought Justice Hooney, and I believe it was at Portman Road Stadium in Ipswich. Now, Justice Hooney was a serious threat. Now, in hindsight bias can be really dangerous. But in hindsight, Justice Hooney had underrated boxing skills. Now, I need to give a caveat or a clarification here, because apparently where Justice Hooney is from, they all knew that he had high boxing IQ. But I think serious boxing fans that weren't from that region, they underestimated Justice Hooney's boxing capabilities. And for 9 rounds, Justice Hooney, you could argue quite convincingly, he looked world level. And he was winning the battle on the inside, and he was winning the battle on the outside. And that's what surprised me. I wasn't surprised that he was winning the battle on the outside, because he had significantly longer boxing experience and he had the identity of being a boxer that understood nuance and it was technical. But what did surprise me was how he was dominant on the inside and he had a dominant position. That was surprising. So after 9 rounds, Justice Hooney is ahead. But in round 10, a right-hand counter trap changed everything. And that one right hand, within a blink of an eye, that one right hand resulted in a 10-round knockout. Here's a clear distinction. It wasn't just Fabio's power that prevailed. It was his ability to stay calm and land that brutal punch on target. Think about it. It wasn't just Fabio's power that prevailed. It was his ability to stay calm and land that brutal punch on target. And this gave Fabio Wardley a considerable popularity boost. He had come from behind, he had showed bravery, he had shown courage, he had shown character, and he had scored a devastating knockout. From this point, the car of Fabio Wardley was moving quick. He was moving very quickly. And you could ask the question, did this comeback knockout reveal Wardley's growing patience and ring intelligence? And I think the answer to that is yes, because Wardley at this point had great accuracy and power of mythical proportions. So on the 25th of October was the fight against Joseph Parker at the Wembley Stadium in London. Here's a question, an important question. Who is Joseph Parker? Well, Joseph Parker is a former world champion, so that's credibility. That is credibility. But also the context is important, because the context is that Joseph Parker was again gaining momentum. He had speed, power, experience, and some good victories behind him. He also had a great team. Joseph Parker had a great team. Andy Lee is a very good trainer. Now, in the fight, Joseph Parker was very aggressive. However, in round 2, he got himself into some serious trouble. He stayed in the pocket too long, and Fabio Wardley set a trap and landed that right hand. However, despite that scare reinforcing that power of mythical proportions, in the middle rounds, Parker's understanding of the nuances of boxing, the distance, and the ring IQ was giving him a significant advantage. But it was still a competitive fight, but it felt like Parker was starting to get a hold of the fight. But once again, Fabio showed character, heart, and patience, which are very important elements within the boxing sphere. And he found the sequences of punches. In round 11, a crushing right hand had Parker in serious trouble. This was like a right hand that was thrown through the target. Joseph Parker, again, remember, he's a former world champion. He's been in the ring with some great fighters. He utilized his experience as expected. But Fabio was a savage. He was a savage. He was a lion in the jungle. The stoppage, in fairness, may have been premature, according to some, but the brutality was very, very real. The brutality was very, very real. For his labor, and it was hard labor because it was a hard fight, Wardley gained popularity, and this time he gained global recognition. And you could argue this was the fight that pushed Wardley onto the global heavyweight stage. Now people are really taking notice. And from here, on the 17th of November, Wardley was then promoted to become the WBO champion. So in effect, Fabio Wardley now has a CV. He has a good boxing CV. He has developed the boxing IQ. He understands the nuances. He has the power of mythical proportions. He has the credibility. And now he has a belt. So now let's talk about the team. And the premise here is that teams are important. Teams are important and trainers are important. For example, when I think of Lennox Lewis, who is an elite champion, I think of Emmanuel Stewart, I think of their team. And when I think of Riddick Bowe, I think of the trainer Eddie Futch. And with Eddie Futch would come an effective team. Now, with regards to Fabio Wardley, here's where the power paradox comes from, perhaps. And we're going to address the mentorship, the head trainers, the strength conditioning, the nutrition, and the training philosophy. We're just going to briefly go over these points. So let's start with the mentorship. And let's start with the premise that mentorship is an important part of development within any genre. Mentorship is important, but there is context. There is context. It's not just mentorship that's important, it's effective mentorship. Think of that. Because bad mentorship, that makes you go backwards. But good mentorship, that makes you go forward. That makes you take steps forward. That makes you go forward exponentially. So you need mentorship, but you need effective mentorship. So in the Fabio context, the question is, what is the mentorship? And to my understanding, Dillian Whyte, the boxer, plays the mentorship role. Now, Dillian Whyte clearly has credibility. He has an extraordinary resume. Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, Povetkin, Derek Chisora, Tyson Fury, etc., etc. It's an extensive CV. And Dillian Whyte took Fabio Wardley under his wing, giving Wardley things like access to great training camps and elite sparring. This mentorship, I believe, was an essential foundation to the power paradox in a figurative way, because having Dillian Whyte as a mentor is having someone who's, he's been through it. He's been a top level contender and he has so much to share and he has resources to give. And this mentorship would have opened many doors that are normally closed in the boxing universe. So let's talk about the training collaboration. Now, typically in boxing, you have one trainer. So in this setup, it's different because in this setup, you have two trainers. And perhaps this is where the power paradox comes into play. So we have Ben Davidson, and Ben Davidson is a trainer, but he's a trainer with elite credibility. He has worked with Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Josh Taylor, and Billy Joe Saunders. Now, in describing Ben Davidson, I would say that he's tactical. He is precise. And from my understanding, from my perspective, an outsider looking in, it seems like he treats boxing like a science. He reviews the tapes. To understand his opponents, study their good habits, study their bad habits to formulate the plans. And then you have Robert Hodgins, and his expertise is developing boxers locally. And he is the long-time coach and mentor that has worked with Wardley from the very beginning. And he would focus, I believe, from the information that I've gathered, on the technical fundamentals, the pads, and the day-to-day boxing training. So he plays a significant role in the setup. He's like operating the day-to-day. And when I say he, I'm referring to Robert Hodgins. And it would appear that Ben Davidson's role is almost like he's adding to the boxing IQ. He's adding to the analysis of the setup. Now, it's important to remember that historically collaborations can be great in boxing. For example, when Evander Holyfield, the legendary great Evander Holyfield, fought Mike Tyson, he had a training collaboration with Tommy Brooks and Don Turner. So collaborations can be effective. Matter of fact, collaborations with the right knowledge can be very effective. And of course, negative collaborations can be very bad. So it depends on the knowledge, it depends what they're bringing to the table. I believe Ben Davidson brings a lot to the table because he understands the nuances of boxing, he understands the science of boxing. And in simple terms, he knows how to create a strategy and implement it effectively. So you can break that down into two phases. He knows how to create the strategy, that takes a level of expertise, but he also knows how to implement that strategy effectively, or he knows how to enable the boxer to implement that strategy effectively. So we've spoken about the training collaboration. Now we have Danny Wilson. Let's introduce Danny Wilson. And Danny Wilson does the boxing science. Now, boxing on an elite level has a relationship. It has a comfortable relationship with boxing and science. And in a sense, Danny Wilson is responsible for monitoring, which leads to the question, what does he monitor? Well, he partly monitors sleep quality, soreness, stress levels, fatigue levels, heart monitoring to determine improved conditioning. And he's also doing power testing. So all of these are essential because you want to get the best version of Fabio Wardley. If Fabio Wardley has poor sleep quality, has extreme soreness and is extremely stressed, you're not going to get the best version of Fabio Wardley. So you've got this physical testing, you've got strength programming, conditioning, and you've got this thing, and I can never pronounce this, called fight camp periodization. So Danny Wilson is an essential part of this puzzle. He's an essential part of this puzzle in bringing an optimal Fabio Wardley. So in a sense, he's bringing an optimal Fabio Wardley to the table. And that leads to another question. What is an optimal Fabio Wardley? Well, as I've stated, you need a Fabio Wardley to be optimal. He needs to be stress-free, improved heart rate, injury-free, have good speed or great speed, and optimal punching power. So in a sense, the boxing training collaboration that we spoke about before, they bring the boxing strategy. They bring the boxing science, the boxing nuances. But Danny Wilson enables Wardley to implement those strategic boxing protocols. And that means that Danny Wilson is essential. He's an essential part of the Fabio Wardley matrix. So now let's address nutrition and training philosophy. Nutrition and training philosophy. Now, nutrition from a heavyweight perspective is different. It's different because it's not about making weight. It's more about being optimal. So, a super lightweight or a middleweight or a super middleweight, their main concern is about obviously being optimal, but also making weight. But in the heavyweights, it's about being optimal. So the focus is slightly different. So you want to be punching heavy, punching often, have quick feet. This is all part of the boxing matrix. And Lee Richards manages this part. And when I say this part, I'm talking about the nutrition. So in a simple sense, what is the outcomes that we're looking for? We're looking for maintaining an energy balance, which supports muscle gain. And it's about aiding in improved recovery. So it's about not only going through the training sessions, but also being able to recover from the training sessions. Think of this, and this is so important. It's about how you perform, not how you look. Here is a contextual comparison. A bodybuilder focuses on the aesthetic, but this is about a focus on the boxing output. So this protocol, this scientific protocol, isn't about making Fabio Wardley look good. This is about making Fabio Wardley become the best boxer, the best version of himself. So let's round it up with that training philosophy. And that philosophy is structured and scientific. It's structured and scientific. It revolves around high intensity training, which is, for example, 30 seconds of maximum effort with significant rest periods that are repeated for like 4 rounds. It's about improving lower body strength. That's an essential part of the philosophy. Why? And this is critical because the research shows that lower body strength correlates to punching power. So if you have greater lower body strength, you have greater punching power. And this protocol, this aids that. So in a sense, when you put all these elements together, when you put all these pieces of the puzzle together, you get the paradox of where the power comes from. Because this program contains raw boxing with science to bring the best version of Fabio Wardley. Now, some argue that boxing is an individual sport, but that is objectively not true. Because I would argue that in most cases, a great boxer is a product of a great team. Now, of course, boxing has an individual element. They get into the ring and they fight. They do the fighting. The boxer does the fighting. But the process, the 12-week camp, that's a process that consists of many different moving parts. Because great teams, and most elite boxers will have great teams, they have a great trainer, a great cutman, great sparring, great strength and conditioning coach, a great boxing environment, and an approach and strategies to make you optimal from a boxing standpoint. Now, here's something that's important to remember. As I've stated previously, monsters, they are not real. They are fictitious characters that are terrifying in the mind. But training camps can manufacture athletes that have monster-like abilities. So they're not monsters in the objective sense, but the training camps that are optimal can create monster-like abilities. Fabio Wardley undeniably has great punching power, but he also has a system of knowledge to deliver that punching power with brutal accuracy. Additional to the great team, and additional to the fantastic power and great accuracy, he also has a great heart and resilience. Now the book of Fabio Wardley has already had some great compelling chapters. It has already had some great compelling chapters, and there may still be many to come. And as in most cases, only time will reveal the truth. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. That means I'm interested in your comments, I'm interested in your questions, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, all you have to do is simply like and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much, much appreciated. Peace.